On our food segment this week, we speak to author, gardener and cook Jane Griffiths, and she has recently released her new book titled Jane's Superfoods for Super Health. In this book, Jane shares a comprehensive guide to more than 150 delicious, nutrient-rich foods which are eaten as part of a balanced diet, boost your immune system, improve our health and reduce the risk of disease. And she joins me now on Zoom to tell us more about this book that forms part of Exclusive Books Seasons Readings. Jane, a very good morning to you. Thank you so much for joining us and a warm welcome.
Good morning, Lebo. How are you this morning?
All right, you're speaking to Simpiu, but how did Jane's Superfoods for Super Health book come about? It's okay, Jane.
I was very lucky. I signed the contract and came up with the idea for this book literally about a month before lockdown last year. So it was my lockdown project. But the origins of this book go back to when I started growing my own food. The process of growing my own food, especially growing my own food organically using natural methods, showed me how important the beneficial microorganisms are in the soil and how toxic pesticides and chemicals are for my garden and for the food that I was growing. And by going through that process and realizing that these natural methods of growing food were so much healthier for me, it made me start looking at all of the food that I was eating, and it made me start looking at preservatives and processed foods and flavorants and additives, and it made me start looking at my food and where it came from. And that was in around 95 that I started growing my own food. So it's been a long journey, this book. It has got a long history behind it, not just for me, but also for the food that I write about. Our food has an incredibly fascinating history. And in researching this book, I include a lot of that as well, about how the way we've processed our food, the way we've changed our food over the years, over the millennia, has affected us and our health.
Now, Jane, talk to us about some of the healthy foods that you share in this book.
Gosh, well, as you mentioned in the intro, there are over 150 foods in this book. And, there's no scientific definition for a superfood. For me, a superfood is, first of all, it's a food that is super nutrient rich. It has a wide range of nutrients. So this includes everything from vegetables to seeds to nuts to mushrooms to algae to an incredibly wide range of foods. And everything from baobabs, the baobab fruit, to the good news is, if you like chocolate, cacao is in there. That's a superfood. It really is super, super healthy for us. But what I try and do in the book as well is encourage people to look at the food they're eating, and it's not only about what we're eating, it's about how we're eating.
Yeah.
For me, superfoods is exactly that. It's creating, you can see the picture on the screen, it's creating food from scratch. It's creating our meals using these ingredients. So to move away as much as possible from the processed foods. Processed foods are the same way, they're like feeding our plants. There's so many similarities with gardening. If we feed our plants with highly processed fertilizers, for example, they've been reduced down to the bare basics. And it's the same thing with processed foods. They've been stripped of all their nutrients. And not all, but at least so many of them, the compound nutrients that have a huge beneficial effects. Some of them we don't even know. When we eat things together, they have complementary beneficial effects on us when we eat the whole food. So it's to go back to basics and start cooking and preparing as much of our food as possible from scratch.
Jane, I'm quite intrigued with the point you just made about how we eat the food. Just how important is it, just how important is food preparation in ensuring that it doesn't lose all the important nutrients? Because some people tend to overcook or overboil foods, and it defeats the whole purpose.
Absolutely. Yes, it's how we cook it. It's to keep it as close to its natural state as possible. There's a huge big raw food movement as well. But interestingly, there are some nutrients that actually benefit from being cooked. They become bioavailable, which means that our body can absorb them. For example, turmeric, that is very popular at the moment. Turmeric has certain elements in it that only become available to us once they are heated. So if you're adding just a spoonful of powdered turmeric to a cup of orange juice or milk in the morning, it's not going to have the same benefits as if you heat it up. Okay. But on the flip side, as you say, if you boil your vegetables for hours, they're going to lose all their nutrients. So it's to have as much information about the food, and that's what I include in this book as well, is that information, is how to prepare it, how best to prepare the foods, so that they are the most beneficial for us. And once we start doing this, once we start eating food as close to nature as possible, and with the best benefits possible, we start improving our immune systems. We start improving our ability to fight off diseases. The first steps to a healthier body is what we eat. Yes. The old adage, we are what we eat. And it is so true. And again, with the garden, a healthy garden, organic vegetable garden, all starts with the soil. Healthy soil equals healthy plants equals healthy people once we eat them. Right. And that's what this book is all about.
But how do we begin to incorporate these foods easily into our daily meals? I mean, you can just take us through some of the food and the pantry basics we all need in our homes.
Okay, so you can start with storing pantry stuff. There's some very, very affordable ones that are in the book as well. Things like whole grains. Start if you eat rice, for example. If you enjoy eating rice, instead of eating white rice, rather eat whole grain rice. Whole grain rice is much healthier for us. It has the healthy fats in it as well. I know fats are supposed to not be good for us, but there are healthy fats that we really should be eating. And it has far more nutrients in it than the polished white rice. Keep it in your fridge or your freezer because it'll go rancid a little bit more quickly than normal rice. Beans, dried beans, peas. There are so many of those that you can keep in your pantry. Things like chickpeas, things like all of those, you can have them in your pantry so that you're ready. You don't have to go shopping when you decide to cook something. You can just grab some chickpeas and cook them up and make a really healthy meal. Another one is spices. Have a range of spices. Spices have huge amounts of beneficial properties as well. I was talking about the turmeric earlier. Black pepper. If you have black pepper combined with turmeric, it slows down the turmeric's process through our body, and therefore we absorb a lot more. You can see in that picture, there's the pepper with the turmeric, and that's a lovely hot turmeric milk that is very good for us. It's an anti-inflammatory. It's one of the best natural anti-inflammatory. It doesn't have any side effects. So you can start up, go through and choose the basics, choose a section of basics. Then all you need to do to make a meal is you either go out into your garden and pick some stuff, or you go and get some fresh veggies. The interesting thing is doing the research on this book as well and writing it. There are so many foods as well that are new. Like 10 years ago, hardly anybody I knew grew their own turmeric. Now everybody I know is growing their own turmeric. And a similar thing with a lot of the foods in this book that I've included, things like maca root, for example, which is available at the moment, powdered. You can buy it from health stores powdered, and that you can add to smoothies. You can make milkshakes. You can add it to a lot of cereal in the morning. And it's a really, really nutritious root. And in 10 years, 5 years probably time, that will people will probably be growing it in their gardens. And it's only available powdered at the moment, but I'm future-proofing in the book as well.
And you also cover health aspects such as food sensitivities and the importance of gut bacteria. Tell us more about this, Jane.
Absolutely. Our health, so much of our health starts with our guts. You know that we actually are made up of more bacteria than we are our own body cells. There are more of them in us than us. And it's an ongoing, incredibly exciting area of research where they are showing that the health of our gut bacteria, now those are responsible for so many different processes in absorbing and breaking down our food so that the maximum benefit is available to us. And there's a bit of a war that goes on in our guts between good bacteria and bad bacteria. And luckily for us, the good bacteria are winning. Otherwise, the human race would have died off by now. But unfortunately, with the development of antibiotics, which were actually developed from the gut bacteria themselves, with the overuse of antibiotics, with eating incorrect food, with eating too much processed food, with eating just bad nutrition has led to the bad bacteria in our gut starting to win the war. And in certain people, this is where the superbugs come from. This is where a lot of inflammation comes from.
Okay.
A lot of diseases, depression, for example, they're finding links between depression. So we can start addressing that by keeping them healthy and keeping our guts healthy.
Jane, lovely chatting to you. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you so much for having me.
Great stuff.